Hello there everyone, so welcome. I'll be reviewing the faction of the Variags of Khans today, so let's see if we can start up already. Now, I really like the victory condition, as in this just adds a lot of replayability because you can do everything. You can betray, you can do standard play and go after Gondor. You can try to dominate Mordor if you'd like, or even Rune. You can go to the north, south, you have a lot of options as well. So that's really cool. Let's go and start. I don't know, I always add the very hard, even though I want to be playing, of course. But I always like to add that. So, I'd like that just to state. So it's a long campaign still, nevertheless, because if pretty far away. The initial conquests, of course, you can conquer some other stuff, but still, it's going to be difficult to expand in several locations at the same time. And then you're going to straight up go to Gondor, for instance, and which is the most basic idea, and that'll make it very difficult to just push forth because of all the fortresses there. Okay, so replayability, of course, because you do have the major allies, which is Harad, Mordor, and the Rune, and your only enemies with Gondor. Now, you don't have necessarily to capture anything else, but you just have to capture 40 regions, which is really cool. Have a very interesting location. Now, I would say this is one of the most important factions, or the most interesting factions for invasions. Whenever there's an invasion, go for it. You're gonna lose nothing. You're gonna just make sure that you have all your units moving in towards that place, and who knows, you'll end up conquering someone else. The elves, for instance, that'll just be awesome there. So, however, you do not have easy picks. I would say the best one is to go to Ankaragmir. You can conquer it, by the way, by using lots and lots of your faction bodyguards. It's really cool. They are useful, and if you can, just send a couple of other units as well. I mean, you still have some interesting marauders and nomad horsemen. The Khandish raiders can do some damage to them. It's still awesome to see. What I would like to see. So you can actually use loose formation against the forces on Ankaragmir, which helps out a lot. It helps out a lot. I mean, you would conquer this village and then suddenly finances are really cool. Do note that Harad goes for it, and it usually fails the first time. So you will fight the village of Ankaragmir in a reduced stance. So I would say that you don't really want, for instance, don't rush a ballista. I tried to, and it just meant that I couldn't reach it in time. So that's something that I would avoid if I were you. Now, you do have some armies nearby. Yeah, I was able to send all these forces down to reach Ankaragmir, which is really cool. But you also have to decide, because by sending these forces down, I was actually cut off from these cities. So you gotta decide on capturing this village and then going for these cities, or vice versa. Okay, guys? If you try to conquer both, like proceed over here with, let's say, this army, and go to Ankaragmir, good luck. That's on you guys. Now, you have excellent bodyguards. I'll explain. Most of the bodyguards that you actually have. Okay, so you have Variag horse archers, which is really cool. They are skilled against mounts. These are horse archers with a very high accuracy, which is awesome. Lots of missiles. So these will cause a lot of problems. And the missile attack is really nice. And you also have the standard bodyguard unit. Let me show you. Which is the Variag nobles. Like, it inspires nearby, effective against armor, and skilled against mounts. I mean, these guys, they're like elves on foot if it wasn't for the range. Very high. It's high accuracy. The missile attack is 7, melee 10, 22. Like, they're heavy cavalry, 333 in upkeep. I mean, anything about these guys just screams use them and abuse their fact. You have great cavalry, and let me show you just the production capacities. So I'm already, of course, speaking in terms of units. So barracks, this is what you're going to have. One notice is that you have a lot of units here, and that's the only stuff that you have to build, which is awesome. You only have to build one building in order to get everything. So let's start with the Kentish Raiders, basic good archer cavalry. It's awesome, actually. I love them. They're skilled against mounts, so they can survive some clashes. And, you know, pretty basic, but look at the accuracy. It's high on a unit that you can get from very much in the beginning, which is really awesome. Then you have the Norman Horsemen, skilled against mounts as well, and a good attack. I mean, it's pretty decent, pretty decent. You also have the Variag horse archers, which you have seen previously. And notice that the upkeep is quite decent still. I mean, for a unit that it's also 134 missiles and high in accuracy, it's really cool. Do note that they have just a little bit more missile attack than the Kentish Raiders. Have the Wind Riders of Khan, which are, you know, basically sword-armed cavalry that can charge everything, but the upkeep is quite heavy. Then you have the Variag Cutterflats. I mean, these guys are just meant to charge the rear, the front, the sides, anything from the enemy army. Just go with that and you'll be really fine. I mean, the fact that they can just cause this charge is just amazing. Let's go into the foot units. So Kentish Hunters will be your base archer unit. You know, 170, 24 average. This is very basic. I wish the missile attack was like 4 or 5, but it's 3, so it's a little bit lower quality than others, but still quite effective. Then you have the Nomad Axemen, which are effective against armor. With these stats, never a bad choice to get a couple of these guys. Have some Nomad Warriors. Now I disagree with these ones because 610 it's not really too much. This is comparable to the early militia from Gondor, let's say. It's just your standard unit. Of course, if you can get to the Variag Warriors, things change. Very heavily armored, you know, decent upkeep. I would say the upkeep is still heavy, but, you know, still quite decent in 11-15. These will be your kind of elite units later on. Then you have the Variag Bowmen. Do note that they cannot use stakes. It's not really a bad thing because most of your army is cavalry, of course. But still, it would be nice to have a unit to have that. And the missile attack is only 5, but 714 is pretty decent. I wish that this was 190 or even 200. So they are just better than your usual archers, let's say. So let's go into the halls of the Brotherhood. No, let's still check out the Mumakils. Of course, you do have access to Mumakil. Build these guys, no questions asked. No, they are very effective and they will use these this upkeep really nicely. So let me see. In terms of the siege, you do have ballistas and catapults. That's about it. If I'm not mistaken, you do have some other units. Alright, yeah. This is what I wanted to see. So you have a steppe tribesman, which is your basic basic unit against other cavalry, let's say, you know, just spearmen. So it seems like the Variags actually have so good cavalry that they kind of go mostly into cavalry versus cavalry idea. I mean, you're not going to use archers versus cavalry. You're not going to use pikes, for instance. You're basically going to own the enemy cavalry and then just engage with other troops. So disregard the steppe tribesmen unless, and even the steppe archers, unless you're really desperate for units. I mean, they even have very low missiles, very low accuracy. These wouldn't be good. Now, the Marauders is a different thing. Since they are skilled against mounts and very low on upkeep, you can use these guys very effectively. And you won't be bothered if you lose them because you can just build so many of them. I mean, so that's all actually a good unit. It's something that I feel like I would go for. Then you had the Warlords Brotherhood. Well, that actually shouldn't be. That's on the Warriors Guild. Right, but it would be on the Brotherhoods, you know, that still provides that. So let me just show you this. Alright, so you would have the Brotherhood of the Axe, you know, a very, very awesome anti-armor unit. This is a heavy armored anti-armor unit, but with no shields. Do note you don't really want these guys against enemy crossbows, for instance. They would just rip them apart. Then you have the Brotherhood of the Sword, kind of like the same. They do have a little bit more attack and more defense, but I would state that I prefer the Brotherhood of the Axe for most of what I usually do, which is to just make sure that I kill as fast as possible. You also have the very good Brotherhood of the Bow. Now, these are your heavy cavalry archers, but of course, get them as fast as you can. A couple of units of these on every army and you'll be fine. High accuracy, a very decent range for a cavalry unit. Usually they have this or even lower. And 36 missiles. It's one of the units that I feel have the most missiles. Very high upkeep, of course, that also counts. And then you have the Brotherhood of the Lance, which are, it's kind of like your generals, but on 61. They do not have actually anti-armor capabilities, but they're still very skilled against mounts, and this charge will rip anyone that you can see. So you do not have pikes. You rely on cavalry to take enemy cavalry, and of course on the Mumakil, for instance. It's a very aggressive battle faction overall, because it relies on you being aggressive rather than just staying back. So it's not like I would do the same tactics of, well, let me form a line of pikes and let me form a line of archers, let's have some cavalry in the flanks. No, that's not how this faction would work. And it would still need a couple of those in order to test, to be sure that it would be very effective. So just like to note, yeah, of course you can recruit even more Variag nobles. Just recruit them all the time. In itself, it's already a very good unit, even though it's just 21 sorties in the beginning. Alright, so let me talk about the finances. So, if you can get An-Karagmir, like I've shown you on many other occasions, then you're fine. You're pretty fine in the beginning, you will support everything. If not, it's not like everything is lost, of course. You still have some early mines that you can build. Not on your capital, but especially in Oibamari. Yeah, you have in Oibamari and you have in Amukans. So just go for the mines. Even on Shelker Village. Well, and yeah, even on Shelker. So you have 3 mines. Actually, every single place has mines, but you have 3 very important mines that you can go for that will add a lot of income so that you can support more units initially. Now, you do start with some bad stuff. I would say that most of your faction leaders most of your generals are very weak. I mean, a 3-star general, they're very low quality generals. Of course, you're going to need a lot of battles around, but it's not like you have rebels anywhere that you can fight or in order to gain levels. So you'll probably be fighting, let's say that you would reach Gondar, you would probably be fighting armies of them with 10 star generals, and you would have like a 5 or 6. So be mindful of that as well. And you do start additionally with the diplomat. Of course, it's kind of interesting because you will still need a lot of time to progress with that. I think it's actually even faster to build or to recruit a diplomat, or to conquer a place that would form you a diplomat and that you can build so they can send over there. But still, it's nice to send this diplomat at least to talk to Harad, Umbar, and then to proceed over to the north. Alright, I think that was it for the Variag faction. It's a very interesting faction to play just because of the starting location, let alone the fact that you have so many horse archers and horse units that it's just amazing. I forgot to talk that most of your leaders actually have the Serpent Elixir ability, which is really cool for the army effectiveness. It's really awesome. I mean, they have these special abilities, so it's really awesome to see. I can't remember if you have a lot of night fighters, but you can check that for... yeah. So you have a little bit of night fighting capabilities, which is good. It's always nice. Let me see if I'm not mistaken, this guy had a night fighter? Yeah, he also has a night fighter. It's really cool. The fact that you have at least start with a couple of them, it's awesome. Alright guys, that'll be it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Bye bye!